I'd like to thank everybody for coming out on this mild, I guess we can still call it mild March night, where the spring's soon advancing on us. Even though we didn't have any snow this winter, it's like we're going to get all of our snow next week. So brace yourselves, don't sell your winter clothes yet. As we always do, have a number of announcements and acknowledgments. And first of all, to say thank you all for coming out. And the Red Dragon Reading Series is made possible by generous support from the SUNY Oneonta Office of the President, the Department of English, and the Green Toad Bookstore, which has very kindly made books available for Bob Bensen. So you should buy a book, make sure the profits go to them and not Amazon. And I know that Bob will be very happy to sign those books as well. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Cardeye and his wife, Dr. Rachel Frick-Cardeye. Thank you. I know you've been a regular attendee of our readings, and we really appreciate your support. So thank you very much. Let's see. Also, acknowledgement very much to Ruth Carr, who I always heap this sort of superlatives on her. If it were in my power, I'd make her a full professor for her mastery of all the machinery of this college and making sure that we get our jobs done. She's also the master, the mistress, the matron of the lead, what is it?
Lead credit.
Lead credit, I know, but it's Q code, the lead credit Q code reader. So, so if you are here to get lead credit after the reading, please see Ms. Carr, and she will make sure that you are taken care of. A couple of other things. Many of you know, and if you don't know, you will know this fact now, that the English department sponsors an annual writing contest. The deadline for the writing contest, and we accept entries in all genres, fiction, poetry, nonfiction, critical essay. There's probably a couple of others, but they're slipping my mind right now. And the deadline, I had to take this picture with my phone because I didn't want to take the poster off the wall, is March 24th. So if you've got a ream of poems or a short story or a really fine essay that you've written in one of your classes available, I encourage you very much to submit to the contest. If you go to the department website, you'll find the email address. What is it like?
It's a link. Yeah, there's a link right on.
Yeah, I think it's something like writingawards@oneonta.edu.
Yeah.
The winners of the contest will be featured as the last reading of the Red Dragon Reading Series. So not only do you win a cash prize, how rare do you get paid for your writing? It's never. So, and but also you get the fame and celebration of standing here at the podium with the giants, as we will see later today. So the next reading, one bit of business here, will be taking place on Thursday, April 16th, same bat time, same bat channel here at the Morris Conference Center. We'll be featuring Guyanese American poet Saida Agostini, who will be reading from her most recent work, so we're really happy to have her here. This intro, we're famous. Dr. Hovis and I are kind of dueling intros. I think we have like the collected intros of the Red Dragon Reading Series that's going to be published by Bright Hill Press. This is perhaps a little more off the cuff, busy time of the year, but nonetheless heartfelt. I first knew Bob Bensen. He's a professor over at Hartwick, and I was a new hire here at SUNY Oneonta, and first coming to know him, I was a little skittish. He was off there in enemy territory, and I was holding the ground here at SUNY Oneonta, and of course very quickly I found out that my fears were unwarranted. Bob has had a long career teaching poetry at Hartwick College, nearly 40 years. actually. And then he just recently retired, and then he realized he can't get enough of it. And so he shifted, he changed camps. He came over to our side, the winning side, I like to think, and has been teaching creative writing classes and literature too, or composition here for the English department. And he also teaches these really wonderful classes at the Bright Hill Literary Arts Center up in Treadwell. And I know they're good because he emails me all his lessons plans and just gives me like this amazing material to steal and use in my classes. And so he's generous on many different fronts. And he's a wonderful poet, a terrific teacher, and a very essential part of the Oneonta community. There's some of the we call it the trivia parts of the introduction that I could read. Bob Benson's 7th book of poetry, What Lightning Spoke, lots of them over there on the table. New and Selected Poems, that's his most recent book. His poems and essays have appeared in the Paris Review, the Partisan Review, Callaloo, the Caribbean Writer, Native Realities, Jamaica Journal, Agni, Aquicon, Native Americas, Poetry Wales, Plowshares, and many, many other journals. Keep that in mind because that will be in the trivia contest at the end of the reading. His writing has earned awards and fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, Newberry Library, New York State Council on the Arts, Illinois Council on the Arts, you name it, he's raked it in. I believe you won Wimbledon against Federer, right? You know, and that, he's very, very humble about that. He doesn't really like to put that on his resume. He has edited anthologies of Native American and Caribbean literature and authored a resource study of American Indian and Aboriginal Canadian childhood. And again, Professor Emeritus at Hartwick, occasional professor here at Oneonta, and also at the Bright Hill Literary Arts Center. So a very significant resume indeed. Now, I have a particular kind of relationship with the poets in this town are great. Everybody is just very supportive of each other. It's not a place ridden by jealousies and competition and stuff like that. And when you're in such a community, you know, sometimes you're very lucky in that, you know, an important, prominent, famous poet will do you the favor of writing a blurb for your book, which Bob wrote a blurb for my chapbook that came out in 2020. And sometimes you'll be lucky and honored enough to have a prominent, significant poet ask you to write a blurb for their book, which Bob asked me to write a blurb for What Lightning Spoke. And I'd like to share that with you. This is the unboulderized version because it was too long to fit on the back of the book with all the other amazing blurbs. I mean, you know, we've got Thomas Travisano, Jay Rogoff, Sven Biekerts, Bertha Rogers, the host of people who praise Bob is remarkable. So I'll just read this and then I'll leave the stage to Bob. What a pleasure it is to read in this collection the arc of Robert Benson's career, which is far from over. These poems are filled with humor and wisdom, piercing imagery and muscular music, and a vast range of striking stories. Here a dog literally talks its person off a ledge. A washed-up pitcher takes his revenge out on a child's catcher's mitt, with the child's hand still in it. And the dark history of European contact and conquest of the Americas unfurls before us. Central to all of this, the music. Vivaldi, Mozart, merengue, a croak in a frog's throat. And Benson's sensitive translations of Baudelaire, Degas, Nizar Kabani. Without a doubt, What Lightning Spoke is an electric book. It forks lightning. Please welcome to the podium.
you're ahead. Thank you, Roger. That's, he came up to me before the thing, said, hope you don't mind, I'm going to ad-lib a little. He did forget the Pulitzer and the MacArthur. You can call me George. The Roman orator and writer Cicero said that gratitude was the parent of all the virtues and is the greatest of these. And so, in my gratitude, I want to acknowledge Dr. Hecht and his colleagues on the Red Dragon reading series, Dr. George Hovis, Dr. Suzanne Black, and Dr. Dan Payne, and Dr. Sheena Mason, who is here. I met her, I know. So, and Ms. Ruth Carr, who keeps everybody's wits together and makes it possible. And also the Honorable James Heidner, the proprietor of the Green Toad Bookstore, who has really made this town a book town. If you haven't been in the Green Toad, you just haven't been here. And so find your way down there. Students, if you haven't been there, I can't commend highly enough, including having my books and so on. And so I thought I'd start with a poem about insurance. You really can't go wrong if you talk about auto insurance. I just get that off the TV. Oh, I also want to acknowledge my Hartwick family who is here too. Tessa Yang and Brad Fest have come over, and I think they brought some students with them. So I really feel that the ecumenical cross-college climate, which is due in part to the two college presidents, including President Cardea here tonight, needs to go forward and be supported on all. So you SUNY Oneonta students, pardon me, get over to Hartwick. It is a friendly place. I know that. It took me a long time to learn that, but it's true. So auto insurance. My wife and I had a really terrible head-on highway speed crash in 2010. And so this poem comes out of that. I thought, the insurance company I thought was doing a really nice thing. They sent a doctor to examine me. I thought, oh, they're going to check and see how I am and see what I need. Well, really what they were there was to kind of whitewash the thing, make sure that the insurance company wasn't liable for much. So it was like, I was very naive. But this is called the insurance hokey pokey. The doctor had me do the orthopedic hokey pokey. Can you lift your leg? Can you put it down? And because the knot of glutes and piriformis muscles still enable me to hold my place in the evolutionary scheme, post-simian erect, for the most part. He told the insurance company I paid that pays him to tell them they don't need to pay me because I've achieved a satisfying result. The result being the satisfying limp derived from the first cause, the Big Bang, which was our Honda super colliding with the black Ford F-150 pickup, sending all its force into my hip. Based on this cracker's quackery, the great and powerful Dr. Oscar Wiener, I kid you not, that was his name. I wonder he was a little defensive. He pronounced me healed, which sends supernova jolts of pain into the black hole of this crazy hip, sucking in every mile I haven't run, every sleepless hour, every waking hour in fog from lack of sleep, and the burning indignation of being had. One down. If at any time you have a question as to what insurance to buy, just raise your hand, or anything about any of the poems, about poetry. Look at all you people. Where did you come from? Look at this. This is testimony to the health of the creative writing program in this English department. If you are in a creative writing program, or if you are a writer, let's give yourselves a hand. Can we do that? overcome by threats from the instructor, give yourself a hand too. I know how to. I wish I could see better though. I'm going to do that one. Oh, here's a short one for you who have contemporary attention spans. It's a haiku. The title is almost as long as the poem. It's called The Angel Choir's Recorded Message Haiku. I was thinking about, one day it struck me how many inputs there are to us that we hear recorded messages. We get on phone trees, or you read television, call this number. And so I wrote a long poem about that, but I thought, well, what if prayers were answered by a recorded message? And angel choirs go back a long way. So this is called The Angel Choir's Recorded Message Haiku. Quote, "Your call is very important. Would you please hold?" sang the angel choir. Sometimes we have to pick all that stuff up. How I fix things. This is for all you handy people at home who have home repairs that you don't really get to very well. So, how I fix things. I buy tools. Then I set them by the things to fix. A ruler and hammer beneath the picture, yet unhung. A screwdriver by the door with the stuck-out handle. Little brown bags of screws by a wobbly hinge. Paint is thin-skinned, so say nothing, or leave a brush nearby for its contemplation. My wife says things will not fix themselves. I say, but how will they learn otherwise? She's testing my theory. She's taken to leaving tool catalogs by my chair. I also do preventive repair. I set tools out by what isn't broken yet. Let things see what's in store if they do. Things break for all sorts of reasons, for timeout, for mass-produced to declare their individuality, to communicate with us in their broken language. But don't rush. Fix something too soon and it breaks again, just to show you. Even this poem is not entirely sound. But let's leave it alone for a while. Next time you read it, it might be better. I'm going to stop littering here. This is really unseemly and unsightly. Okay, so you ever have a situation where you run into somebody and you know who they are, but you can't remember the name? Yeah, but there's a little generation thing going on here. But this is for all of us who have had that experience. It's called not knowing names at the opening. Worst thing of all is go to a gallery opening in town. Because you met everybody before, but you don't remember who they are. All right? I forget her name. How many years has it been? Or months? Or weeks? She's forgotten my name too, or won't use it, since I won't use hers, especially with her new husband hovering, who played drums one time with Jefferson Zeppelin, or Lead Airplane, or some band named for a flying machine. U2, Me Too, B6, no, that's a vitamin, B52. Anyway, not like another one I've forgotten who calls me by my name and gets more standoffish in inverse proportion to my ingratiating jokiness that covers my not having the slightest idea who she is. I shuffle through my mental databank of faces, find one close, but the reddish hair seems a recent acquisition. I imagine different colors on her, no match. When she drifts away showing her canines, I check the guest book she just signed. J.I. Jill. Of course, Jill with her new post-Zeppelin airplane vitamin husband's name, which I can't decipher. She has to be one of the two Jills I know because she's not the other one. Okay, that's enough for the serious part of the program. But you're really glad you came out tonight, huh? How many of you saw Jupiter and Venus up in the sky tonight? Yes.
Thanks
yes.
to you, Bob.
Yes, thanks to you. I was taking tours out there before this. This is what I was going to do here. This is Billy Collins. Some of you know Billy Collins' poetry. He's very, very prolific and very popular guy. He came to my class one time and told students, and I think he probably says this when he goes to workshops, and maybe you guys can profit from it if you're in a writing class. He says, in order to relieve your poem of relentless, obsessive self-scrutiny, about the fourth stanza, throw in a dog. So I thought if it's good enough for Billy, it's good for me, but I'm going to start with the dog, and then I'm going to throw myself in. This is called Walking the Dog. Dog left a stream of her consciousness at the power pole. Got that? It's okay. Dog left a stream of her consciousness at the power pole. They say that, anyway. She made her next gift look easy. A little scratching, circle once or twice, and before you know, do-si-do, squatting home run, hole in one, get out of here, she's done. And then I'm picking up, and she starts to pull on the leash to get the long way around the extra block. Normally I'd say, slam dunk, here we go. But here it comes. I too am on a leash. There it is, the leash of time. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of toast and tea. I have no time for today, starting with the step she's waiting for, the step to go the long way. She takes her stance, pointing. Not that way today, I say. But oh, the allure of the long way. More stumps, more hydrants, more stop signs, and the twin border collies that go ape for her and bash themselves against the picture window. She pulls a little. I pull back a little. We reach man-dog equilibrium. We were eyeball to eyeball, and I blinked. She sniffs out the news from trees and traffic signs and conducts further investigations at hydrants, and to the horny border collie, slathering the window, shows her sassy sachet between every sit and stay. That's not easy to say. I have a lot of dog poems where I throw myself in. This is called Brown Dog and Yellow Leaves. I like that title. It's a little like Cézanne. Brown Dog and Yellow Leaves. This was written after our dog departed this world. My molars click to the Mussorgsky or Willie Nelson in my head, from Chili Bones, or else not. Street of rain sheets paved with little rivers. She can't get wet now or ever. Yards of mottled leaves, matted, yellow. Leaves she plow through, swift as a shadow. Leaves slick, unraked from weeks of rain. Brown dog, now a ghost of silver, now brown again. A shuffle among leaves. Her familiar snuffle, muffled in a little cyclone of a breeze, yet the everlasting beyond despairs if we forget. Let's go to, let's change the scene to, let's go to Venezuela. Caracas Cathedral, had students there some years ago. Beautiful cathedral. As you go down either side, there are chapels off the nave. And I was admiring so much beauty in these little chapels. One was a scene of the Nativity, you know, a little creche, except it was the entire town of Bethlehem laid out. And the next had, this is what stopped me. There were two sepulchres, 2 alabaster carved, well, containers of bodies in which the man and the woman, husband and wife, were carved in effigy on the top, as they are in European cathedrals. But there was an element in them, in there that was you'll never find in Europe, and that was a bronze sculpture of one of their African enslaved people, a man, who was kneeling at the foot of the sepulchres and had his arms as if to embrace the pair of them. And I thought about the politics of that gesture and of the one who made that installation, that sculpture, and what that conveyed. So this poem is about that, and about how the art of it did and did not transcend the occasion in the moment. It's called The Bronze Enslaved. At the tomb, well, I'll say that. On the cathedral plaza, a boy ties sticks into crucifixes, from which his puppets dance the jumpy tango, his twig-brown wrists lash down the strings. For $1 US, he lets one puppet go. In a chapel, a shaded cul-de-sac off the nave, an old colonial hidalgo and his dame repose on matched sepulchres. One flesh at last, one blank of alabaster, their bodies, arms and clothes. Their veined hands cross their hearts, his grafted to the sword of his rank, hers twined with the marble rosary. Their feet are shackled in the arms of one of their Africans. A man cast beneath them in life, in death, in bronze. The instant grief flung him writhing to the tiles, and he clasped them with passion incredible even then, and sore comfort to the title. He's not standing in a corner, hat in hand, hymning, nor has he flung himself upon them, embracing their bodies as if he had the right. But his bronze grasp is irony. Releasing them releases him. But his arms are boas, whose animal hurt teaches us how to hold the dead in remembrance tenacious as that wrist. In the grip of the master's work, in my chest revives the same ache from the same relentless grasp that torques his spine, fans the ribs beneath his black patina. An ache not even the voices of the dead could heal, nor the chapel's iron locks confine, nor the crypt in the city set free between the steepled sierras. A further layer to the scene is that the couple in those sepulchres are the parents of Simón Bolívar, the liberator of South America. A good friend, Earl Lovelace, a novelist from Trinidad, was up here. He did 2 semesters at Hartwick as an NEH visiting professor. He wrote a novel, wrote a couple novels actually, one of them mostly at Hartwick, called Salt, which won the Commonwealth Prize. And I said, Earl, be sure to put a character in there, good tall, good-looking white English professor in case there's a movie. And it came out, and sure enough, there was a Bob in there. I said, Earl, is that Bob? Is that me? He said, well, I know a lot of guys named Bob. So he got us all with one stroke. While he was up here, a daughter of a cousin, a 12-year-old girl in Trinidad, was struck by a car and killed. And it affected him greatly. And I wrote this poem called Unbeloved in her voice. And I thought this was really cheeky of me to attempt to sort of Trinidad English. And he said he's fine with it. So I'm going to read it. It's spoken by the young girl. A number of my poems, yeah, I'll go on later. But she's saying this to her parents, whom Earl faulted for letting her out on the road at night, a dark road, and she was just, as he said, the car bounced her down. No use saving the obit, clipped like the hurt wing of the parrot I find in the cocoa. Before we knew, the feathers grew back and foul, bright streak and Jaco out the yard. Was you gave it leave? Newsprint crumples around my name more swiftly than your faces around the table. No setting my plate, please. No cutting my shape from every bolt of shadow that flutters like a girl's dress through the yard. Accept instead my favor, the part of you that couldn't love me. Just trim it off. Shear it with the bird shears and lay it down there with me, finally. I would clutch it like a doll in my crossed arms. I would hush it and teach it manners. Why I kept coming home even the last time was hoping it had flown the yard. So it had. It came for me that night on the road. I hear it beating up behind me, and I think I know a heartbeat from a motor car. I think, which one should I get out the way? The car took me where I wanted, so damn your eye holes and shut up your tears. No paper tells my story, at least a stranger tried. Carve instead the stone that weights my head. Beloved, the child will grow no elder here, nor colder than the dead of year when love's reborn. She must as well, for so her name remains, Noel. You've been very, I feel your attentiveness. It's really very heartening. Is there anything you want to say or ask or request? Some of you know some of my work. If there's something you want to hear, always shout it out. You doing all right? Well, okay, good. Sir. Oh, hi, Sam.
Hi. I forgot which year it was, but the one with the catcher and the baseball player.
Oh,
I want to say
thank you.
59.
Thank you for asking for that. I paid him. You got it. Yeah, it's okay. I think the right time for that is in a couple minutes. Yeah. I want to stay in Trinidad for another poem. Excuse me. I'll get a sip of. Outside Port of Spain, you can take a car out there and get in a kind of a motorized canoe with a guy named Nan Nan in the Caroni swamp. And he'll take you through the mangroves out to the center of it. There's an island right in the center where the scarlet ibis roost overnight. At dawn, they take off for Venezuela. They feed in Venezuela, which is only a few miles across the channel. And then at sundown, they come back and they settle in for the night. So you can go at sunrise and sunset. It's quite a sight. This is called Isis at Caroni. The outboard tuned a tight tenor, palmed like a thin metallic bird, trailing us through centuries of mangroves, propped on stilts over the still canal. Our guide, an Indian named Nan Nan, lost me with every turn of his wrist down every channel. In the reflection of the canopy's Gothic arch, a chapel the heron purpled with its resilient beat, and sandpipers streaked with their white, hunched skitter. Drifting through the wake of an egret's passage, we entered the pyramid of light at channel's end, and the lake unscrolled, one green islet mounded in the center that the hills magnified. We tied up at the fence of canes. No one spoke. A yellow leaf sank through our reflection in the lake's brief memory. Here, far from the lights coming on in Port of Spain, whose traffic crawled over the map folded in my pocket, we awaited the ibis's return. Lifted from papyrus nightly or from the tiles of a pharaoh's tomb, they wheeled, igniting the sun's last flare, singly or in pairs, or in whole flocks dipping under the yellowed hem of a cloud. They settled, a scarlet flutter that passed like a wave over the islet, each bending a bough like a lit candle in the dusk. We turned, our backs fading from the fading torch of birds, half blind, half shadow ourselves among the trailing vines and tightening hold of darkness on the trees. A sloth clamped on a high branch, uncurled from a stunned afternoon of slumber. But the channel widened, the canopy split, and what day was left ruddied two ridges of clouds, one piled overhead, one as deep below. So deep, we seemed to drift in some great undiscovered breach in the world, and we were left riding by some deific grace in mid-air. I had to grasp the flaking rail to lean into that abyss, to trace one last bird's gliding silhouette across the cloud's startled face, till I lost it under the hull, when the space between millennia was thin as water, when Isis inquired weeping after slain Osiris, and found only his ibises folded in scarlet reply. Place is very important to my poems. Everything happens somewhere, to somebody. It may not be to me, it may be to a 12-year-old girl. It may be to an Arabic carpet weaver hundreds of years ago. I mean, maybe to a Japanese princess. I have, you don't know where your poem is going to come from. And you got to be free to do that. Okay? That's my message, my sermon. You can go home now, but I'll keep reading. Not that one. Sam asked for, this is the Japanese one. Let's get to Sam's thing here. Okay, I'm going to read one poem before that, I think. Yes. And I said this to the class Dr. Hovis invited me to speak at, so if it's repetitious to anybody, it's okay, you forgot it anyway. A lot of what happens to us of importance in our life happens before we know it. It just happens. And we don't really get it at the time. It takes us a step back or a step forward, and we don't really appreciate that for a while. We don't have words for it. We don't know how to assimilate it into our language and our thought. And so, poetry, somebody defined it as saying what can't be said. And I think there's when it really works, that's what happens. So this is called Before You Know It. I'd cross the wide river, wading my own way home. A handful, they said I was. Was I? I gave in to the river's tease, the slow gray swirl, its push and pull that drew me deeper into churn. I was 4. No one saw the hole, not even I. It was my size, the size I could be forever and ever. My father had nothing but magic up his sleeves that could delve into murk and retrieve a soggy boy. What led him to my hide-and-seek place? My uncles whacked the water out and the daylight's in. The afternoon's sour glare pried my lids apart. Earth pulled me back, gave me back my skinny limbs, their weight. And though I kicked no fly away hymn singing here, I'd been on my way, I was halfway there. Put me back, I barked, put me back, put me back. Whose voice was that in my throat? Delirious, they said, so sure I meant bring me back. They hauled me out and drained me and stood me up and dried me off. So back to school and clarinet lessons and baseball and graduation after graduation and marriage and a new life before I knew it. All the while I didn't peek. One by one, they disappeared into holes in the earth. I never thought to thank them. All gone. That's so funny. Knock, knock. Who's there? Ready or not? Maybe that explains why the dead keep showing up, giving that know-it-all grin, standing around in their finery, rinsed clean and shined up, watching me from their cool distance. We have much in common. We have much to talk about. Sam asked me to read this poem called 1959. Cars still had fins. And I was 12. There's a lot of baby poems here. As many 12-year-olds, I played Little League. And any of you play Little League, you guys? Yes, I got some nods. Yeah, right. And any of the young ladies play Little League baseball? Yeah, my daughter she calls herself a second baser. Okay, kid. Her throw is to hit the ball right back to the pitcher. She realized years later, that wasn't the way you were supposed to. So my dad was a supervisor in the U.S. Post Office, and he had mail carriers under his supervision, and there was a new guy who had been a minor league player, very good, had major league expectations and possibilities. And but he got hurt, and his career was shattered in fairly short order, and so he got a job carrying mail. But my dad, anyway, here's the story. Here's the poem. His new postman got hurt, my dad said, or he'd be in the majors. He's still fast. Hey, would I like to have him come on Saturday? Would I like to catch him? Let him see me pitch? Hey, would I like a hammer in the head? I was, what, 12? I had a good drop curve, but a fastball got away and I hit a kid in the helmet. The pitch dropped him. The ambulance came. I learned the blood throbbing in his arm was wild, but worse, if mine was, so was anybody's. I hated to bat. I was diagnosed, afraid of the ball. Thus was the injured ace sent for. If I could stand up to him, of whom shall I be afraid? The sonic boom arrived just after the ball rearranged the delicate bones of my palm. I caught every stinger, every pitch after angry pitch, after every clock he had to punch, pitch, after every letter, postcard, magazine he had to deliver, pitch. Instead of the pitch he was born to deliver, the white lightning streak of unspeakable joy. He'll never throw that again, not ever. But he thought he'd show me how it could have been. I had to quell the shake in my skinny shoulders each time I dug the ball out. I slowed down, hoping he'd get the message. I blew on my palm, red and puffy and stinging and numb. He reached back. He threw harder. Where were all those big league dreams? Now he was showing his murderous stuff at little league depth to the worthless son of his worthless boss. He didn't need to show anybody he had the arm. He had the arm, I swear. Here's the other page. After the massacre, my dad put his arm across my shoulders, looking for me to say something. I opened my mouth, but my voice had been pounded out of me by the wrath of a strange, avenging angel. I'd taken deeply in the marrows of my hand the despair of a man who would give his life and, if necessary, take mine. If he could use the one gift he had been given as a child, the one that made his life make sense. So if he never showed anybody else, he'd show this useless kid, once and for all, not how to pitch, but how much it hurts not to. I did pretty good with that, huh? I tell you though, you don't want to do that too often. All right, a lot of artists, a lot of athletes, a lot of performers, their careers get out of takes one injury, takes one fraction of a second. It's a very, very fragile life. And yet there is something durable about the spirit that drives us into that. And I'll read a poem. I think maybe I got a couple more and then we can talk some. Is that okay, Sam? I mean, it sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Was it as good as the first time?
The first time they give me goosebumps.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, this time?
No, I've already heard it.
No, yeah. I'm glad I don't have that class. No, it was a great day when I got to visit Dr. Hovis's intro lit class. It was wonderful students in there. A lot of good thinking and involvement going on. This is called Sonata for the Left Hand. True story. A pianist, Paul Wittgenstein. Really? Wittgenstein? We got Julia with us. She's cringing at my German. Had his arm blown off in World War I. So this is the story. Some of you know this better than I probably, but let's fake it. I'll fake it. Sonata for the Left Hand. A Russian, well, the first part sounds like a Wikipedia article. It's meant to be just flat, sort of journalistic. Then it gets good, so hang in. A Russian bullet shredded Paul Wittgenstein's right arm at the outset of World War I. He awoke imprisoned, wrecked arm amputated. He found a box large enough to draw a keyboard on. He ran his fingers of his left hand up and down, practiced scales, arpeggios, runs, trills, chords, and repertoire from memory. Released and returned to Austria in 1915, he commissioned Maurice Ravel to write a sonata for orchestra and a one-hand part for the piano. The orchestra commences and continues for some time without the piano. The music stays deep in bass, all bass. So you think, of course, so that when the piano comes in left-handed, it will seem high. Everything shifted lower. So it does. And then it seems the orchestra will never shut up. It's going to stay lush and all over, up and down the register to compensate, to fill in what the piano can't do with just one hand. And it does just that, long enough to make you think, well, that's it, that's how it's going to be. Big orchestra, half a piano. Just when you think you have the idea down, the piano multiplies, proliferates. No way one hand can keep the chords going like a washing machine and do the plinky-plinky triplets up high, sprinkled on top of the chords like icing. No matter how quick that left arm is, how deftly it leaves the nether regions to scatter those high notes and back down to the next chord and the next and back before you'd expect anyone possibly could. And so, the left alone overwhelms the whole orchestra you thought was there to console it, to set a backdrop for pity, for charity, to let the left alone have a chance to play what's left. But the left alone says, forget that. I've got this. Stand back. Listen. I'm not going to read the rest of these tonight.
Why not?
I don't know. Let's see if there's anything on the, what's on TV tonight? Beverly Hillbillies reruns? Can we go back? See that? Most of this stuff is in this lovely book, which has a beautiful photograph by Charles Brimmer on there. Although this bottle was buried. It's an old mustard bottle, old glass. It was buried in the earth about 100 years. And when glass is buried that long, it mineralizes and gets streaks and patterns on it. And all Charlie did, well, all he did, was to color the pattern that's in the glass. And it seemed to me that that was a perfect metaphor for the poem as a form containing energy. So what Lightning Spoke has to do with that configuration. I didn't mean to imply that the poems come like lightning. Boom, there it is. Well, sometimes you get a gift, but mostly it takes forever. It takes me forever. I'm very, very long, in getting things done. So there are pieces that I have worked on for 40 years before they come right. So I'm going to, well, this is such a disaster out here. You really should, you saw a little bit. Oh, okay. This is I guess this is the last one I'll read. April 30th is coming. April 30th is the date of the end of the Vietnam War in 1975. So, what's that, 48 years ago, something like that? In a couple of years it'll be 50 years. 40 years, this poem was finished in 2015, so it's like 7 years old, but it took me 40 years to write. 40 years ago today, America lost the Vietnam War. We jumped off the roof of a hotel in Saigon, or lifted off in overloaded Huey helicopters, but I'm not thinking about that today. I'm thinking about Al Reeses, the kid across the street I grew up with. Good ball player, liked to pound on me to stay in shape. He went infantry, riding in a jeep that a shell blew up beneath him and a shrapnel took away a considerable amount of cerebral material, which left him with not much to work with. Last I saw him, I was home from college, my first year. His mother, Helen, wheeled him over in his chair. We grew up skinny, lean, tight-muscled. This was a doughy version I scarcely recognized. He'd softened into something pliable, kittenish. He was down to one word. Yeah, kind of a yawn. His glass eye did not follow the good one, which seemed to me filled with resignation. His one good arm would lift his hand gently, then return to rest on the arm of his chair. Radio this 40th year after did a piece on the memorial. 58,000 names, 500 feet long, a black slab you'd feel you'd never get past. No use looking for his name. He wasn't KIA. That's the name of a car now. But killed in action is Kia. He and his mom disappeared to the southwest to be near a facility, I heard. We heard less and less. The neighbors they kept in touch with, Dan had a heart attack, Flossie went blind and moved to Arkansas or somewhere to be near her daughter Sally. Her son George grew up a hospital administrator, like his dad. Hospital. Funny, I never made that connection before. I wonder if he remembers how it felt the first time he got the family car to pick up a girl he liked the first spring evening of the year. I bet he does. I bet he thinks about that a lot. Well, you've been so nice that I'm going to read you one more. Any excuse. See, you haven't been attentive enough, so until you get this right, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to have to find it in the book because the papers are a total loss. A translation made from, I collaborated with a wonderful Arabic poet and cancer doctor. What's a cancer doctor? Oncologist, thank you. Oncologist in Albany, Rana Bitar. We did a project translating the poems of Nizar Kabani, a Syrian poet who died in 1998. Fabulous poet. He has like 35 books of poetry. Very influential, very controversial. He got thrown out of every Arab country there is for his politics and his liberation of women's sexuality. But here's a poem called A Lesson in Drawing. And this, I will stop with that, and then maybe if you want to, anyway, we'll do whatever we do after. A Lesson in Drawing. My son places his coloring kit in front of me and asks me to draw a bird. I dip the brush in a gray color and I draw a square with a lock and rods. My son asks with wonder in his eyes, "Dad, don't you know how to draw a bird?" I said, "Forgive me, son, I have forgotten the shape of birds." My son places his coloring pencils in front of me and asks me to draw the sea. I take a pencil and I draw a black circle. My son says, "But this is a black circle, Dad. Don't you know the sea is blue?" I say, "My son, I used to be good at drawing seas, but they took away my fishing rod and my boat. They prohibited me from conversing with the color blue and from fishing in the waters of freedom." My son places his drawing notebook in front of me and asks me to draw a stalk of wheat. I hold a pencil and I draw a gun. My son mocks my ignorance in the art of drawing and says, wondering, "Don't you know, Dad, the difference between a stalk of wheat and a gun?" I say, "My son, in the past, I used to know the shape of wheat stalks and the shape of a loaf of bread and the shape of a flower. But in this iron world where the forest's trees join militias and the roses wear camouflage, in this time of the armed ears of corn and armed birds and armed religion, I can't buy a loaf of bread without finding a gun hidden inside it. I can't pluck a flower from the field without it raising a weapon in my face. No book I buy from the library doesn't explode between my fingers." My son sits on the edge of the bed and asks me to read him a poem. A tear drops from my eyes on the pillow. He catches it in astonishment and says, "But this is a tear, and not a poem, Dad." I say, "When you grow up, my son, and read the volumes of Arabic poems, you will know that the word and the tear are sisters, and that the Arabic poem is but a tear shed from the tips of the fingers." My son places his coloring pencils and coloring kits in front of me and asks me to draw a country. The brush shakes in my hand. I drop it to the floor, and I weep for my homeland.